Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I will react to geography now Japan. I think this country will be something many people are interested in. I hope so. I saved it extra for a later point, but now the last really video which had kind of a success was Turkey, so now it's Japan. I hope many people watch this video. Please subscribe to my channel and you would do me a real gigantic favor. Like the video and recommend it to other people if you want. But yeah, by the way, these are fried onions. I like them. I recently found out that I really like them. Fantastic. I think normally you eat them together with on a hot dog with other things, but I like them just to eat for themselves. Also on hot dog, but yeah. Also without hot dog, it's good. Anyway, I hope you're all well and all right. Yeah, Japan. Japan is one of the countries which I am really interested in visiting one day. Also, I see in the suggested videos here North and South Korea. I mean, I would like to visit nearly all of the countries in the world. So I have no prejudices against any country. I have a few against some countries, but the most countries I would like to visit. And under certain conditions, I would really like to visit the most countries. Even the United States. Even when there would need to be a lot of changes and a lot of things first before I would visit the United States, like a bit more safety. I'm afraid I would just die there because everyone has weapons and it's really dangerous at some point. So not on the top priority list, but also the United States would be interesting, and even Ukraine and Indonesia. Although both of those countries have right now banned communistic symbols in their countries, and this is something I really don't like. On Twitter, I tweeted once about something a while ago. Recently, Twitter has become weird at some. It's with Elon Musk, but there was something I tweeted. Maybe I will have a link in the description about Ukraine and communistic symbols. But that's besides the point. We are now in Japan, so I would like to visit Japan. I like animes. Animes sometimes. Some animes are really nice, and I always watch, of course, anime in Japanese, and with English subtitles. I mean, everyone can do it in their own way, but I think I like it in this way much better. So, interesting. But we will see a lot of interesting things in this video, I guess. I watched it before, but not recently, so maybe a few things will be new again for me, kind of. I hope you will all enjoy the video. Please subscribe, and let's not waste any more time.
This is one country I barely have to introduce you to. Let's just get it over with. Sushi, geishas, karate, temples, ramen, anime, sumo's weird stuff. You too. Let's just get it over with. Sushi, geishas, karate, temples, ramen, anime.
Hey. Anime, the anime frame. Let's take a look. Naruto. I have watched a few parts of Naruto. I think maybe 100 videos or so. I'm not sure, but I have watched a bit. Not everything. Anything else? And now, but I like anime. She. I know her. I think is this. It's a short anime. I think. Which. Maybe I know this too. There's also this. I mean, there are a lot of animes, and I don't know the English names, but recently I watched Hello World. I really can recommend this anime. It's nice. Let's continue.
Sumo's weird stuff, weird cosplay, poison fish, and I'm not even gonna ask about that.
Yeah. This looks. Anyway.
Dewa, ikimashou.
By the way, konnichiwa. I mean, I learned a bit more Japanese. I started on Duolingo some Japanese lessons over 2 years ago or so. I didn't learn so much, but a bit. Moment. Faceless Guy, Toimas, oder nee, Toimas, Faceless Guy, would be something like my name is also, but maybe I'm mistaken, but something like this. I learned a bit. I can read a bit hiragana and katakana. Kanji is of course much more difficult, but I can read a bit. Not kanji, just the other two languages a bit. Also yeah, I learned a bit. I want to learn more at some point, but it's really difficult.
It's time to learn geography
now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbs. We have reached the land of the rising sun, Asia's island powerhouse, and home to a culture that I'm sure you've heard of. Let's just jump into it.
Okay, I'm sorry for pausing so much, but on the other hand, if we talk about reaction videos and people pausing, I don't like it if people just talk over the video. That's really annoying. So better pausing very often and not just talking into the video.
Ah, Japan, you have such a story behind you. First of all, Japan is located right off the east coast of the Asian continent between the Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Japan, stretching all the way from the Sea of Okhotsk in the north with the East China Sea to the south. The country is divided into 47 prefectures, each with incredibly beautifully minimalistic style flags. The prefectures are divided into 4 different categories: Ken, To, Fu, and Do. The first level, Ken, Ken, refers to the 43 plain prefectures. Then you have To, which means something like metropolis, and this category
That's insane. That's more than just a bit insane. If we go a bit frames back, where he is zooming in, you can see how gigantic Tokyo is. And I mean, it's huge. It's so huge. And in the city, there are more people than in all Australia, New Zealand, and Oceania together, and that's insane to think about.
And this category only applies to Tokyo City. Fu refers to the urban prefectures, which applies only to the cities of Osaka and Kyoto. And finally, Do, which is a unique category translating to something like circuit, and it applies to all of Hokkaido in the north. Speaking of which, Tokyo, Japan's capital, is the largest city in the world with its greater metropolitan area, including Kanto, containing about 37 million people. That's more than the entire population of Canada. However, Tokyo is kind of like 23 smaller cities all smashed into one, divided into units called wards. And the closest thing to a capital one would probably be Chiyoda, where the Emperor, Prime Minister, and Supreme Court are located. After the greater Tokyo Kanto region, you have the next largest cities, Osaka.
I would love to visit Tokyo one day. Japan in general, but also Tokyo. It's insane to think about, but I mean the size of the city and so. I would love to visit it.
And Nagoya coming in at third. Keep in mind, about 90% of people in Japan live in cities, and the vast majority on Honshu and Kyushu. The busiest airports, of course, being Tokyo's 2 twins, Haneda, which is actually in Tokyo, and Narita International, which is like an hour-and-a-half drive away outside of Tokyo. Then you have Osaka's Kansai International,
kicks,
and Fukuoka International on Kyushu. Gotta keep it clean, Keith. Speaking of which,
this is something not insane, but it's funny that in the United States it's so restricted to say these words like fuck or cunt. I think cunt is one of these words. It's funny. I think it's funny. I mean for German equivalent ficken or what means cunt? Is it, by the way, a moment, I have to research something. Yeah, I researched, and cunt is a vulgar word for the vulva or vagina. It's used in a variety of ways, including as a term of. Okay, anyway, it's funny. I think it's funny that these words are so restricted, and I mean, so then I was just researching for knowing what it really means. So the German equivalent would be Scheide or Fotze or so. I mean, the vulgar is Scheide is a real word for this body part, and Fotze is this how to say the equivalent to cunt maybe, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyway, let's continue.
Japan is made up of about 6,850 islands, but about 97% of the land is made up of 4 main islands: Honshu, Kyushu, Shikoku, and Hokkaido. South of the main 4, you have the Ryukyu island chain, which extends just south of Kyushu, partially making up the Okinawa prefecture. You've probably heard of Okinawa. It's where Uma Thurman got that sword that she used to kill Lucy Liu. It's also where these 2 islands never mind.
I think it was a first April joke, the islands.
Nonetheless, Japan can still kind of be separated into 10 historical main regions, 6 of which divided amongst Honshu. Then you have the interesting, less highlighted Kuro Island dispute with Russia in the north. Basically, Russia administers all of them, but Japan claims these 2 islands closest to Hokkaido, Iturup or Etorofuto, and Kunashir or Kunashiri, which is only like less than 10 miles away from Hokkaido. On a clear day, you can even see it from the coast, but it's like, nope, Russia. They even have a statue.
I would too. I mean, I think it's funny this. I mean, I don't want to say anything about this dispute, but it's funny that they built a statue, and so it's nice.
Lenin. The Russians and Japanese have kind of had a long dispute over this area. At one point, Japan even tried to take over all of Sakhalin in the 1800s. Then you
I think they even, I mean, there's no real existing peace treaty between Russia and Japan, I think. So technically the Second World War between those countries is still active also on paper. But yeah, they tried to solve this issue, and then the war in Ukraine happened, and the talks were ended, or they didn't talk anymore. So yeah, anyway.
You have the Dokdo Takeshima Island dispute between them and South Korea. To this day, South Korea has a patrol building built on the island and they fiercely guard it. And finally, you have Okinotorishima, which is probably the loneliest place in Japan, as a shallow reef in the middle of the ocean. It looks like it's trying so hard to become an island, complete with 3 helipads and a research station. There's no diplomatic dispute, but rather a dispute within the UN on whether or not it qualifies as land for an exclusive economic zone in the ocean. Phew, okay, alright, that kind of took forever. Getting around
This exclusive economic zone thing is something which is often the reason for dispute in the world, and yeah, I think that it's a very hard job in the UN to mediate between those countries and try to find a solution.
in Japan is incredibly easy, often touted as having the best public transportation system in the world. They have highways and trains everywhere, even one that cuts through an office building, as well as
This looks also nice. Interesting.
as well as the Shinkansen bullet train system that can get you to virtually every corner of Honshu and Kyushu, as well as the bottom tip of Hokkaido, but not Shikoku. If you want to go to Shikoku, you have to take the slower local Seto Ohashi line across the Seto Bridge. Yeah, Shikoku is kind of like the runt of the litter in Japan. Basically, Japan is like one big massive machine, constantly running and moving with flashing neon lights, vending machines, and robots, and everything. Everything! Even the garbage cans have cartoons everywhere. Anyway, some notable places of interest might include Tokyo Skytree, the 2nd tallest building in the world, Miyajima Pagoda, Matsumoto, Himeji, and Osaka castles, the Fushimi Inari Shrine, the Great
I have seen this now a lot of times. This thing, and I would of course love to see it. It's the Fushimi Inari Shrine. Okay.
The Great Buddha Hall, Nakagin Capsule Tower, the Vine Bridges of Iya Valley, the Ramen Museum, so many weird themed restaurants and hot springs, the self-mummified of Iya Valley, the Ramen Museum, so many weird
This looks like prison cells, but interesting restaurant. Oh yeah, restaurant.
themed restaurants and hot springs, the self-mummified monks of Sokushin Butsu, that hotel run by robots, the Ninja Museum in Iga, Kan Manga Fuji
This is also insane, interesting.
monks of Sokushin Butsu,
And now I even talk over the video. I'm sorry.
that hotel run by
This looks very, very interesting. A hotel run by robots. That's insane.
robots, the Ninja Museum in Iga, Kan Manga Fuji Lava Buddhas, the restricted access Ise Grand Shrine, the most significant of all Shinto shrines, the Shirakawa Go traditional village, armed with water cannons to protect itself from fires, abandoned theme parks like Greenland and Nara Dreamland, Kochiya Hill with red cypress,
There's flowers and also this pink tree, which probably is also coming. Looks very beautiful.
and the national treasure Itsukushima Shrine, featured on numerous pieces of art, films, and even banknotes. Now, despite the bustling metropolis regions and skyscrapers, Japan does an incredible job at maintaining its natural integrity. Find out how in...
I mean, I think they have a lot of tsunamis and natural catastrophes at some point. I mean, also the Fukushima incident. Okay, here we are back again in the same video. I just had to make a second part because I have written with my girlfriend. Now I'm back again here. I hope you all subscribe to my channel. Please do. You would do me a favor, and There will be also a video probably tonight or tomorrow, depending on how much time I have. But I plan to start a new Let's Play this evening from Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. But I'm not sure about whether or not I will upload it on my main channel or on my second channel because of nudity, naked people or women, and not men. The men are never naked, or except for how was it? Cyberpunk 2077. There are also men naked, I think. I have never played it through. Maybe I will do it at some point, but Witcher 3 Wild Hunt I want to play, and yeah, there's nudity. That's why it might also be uploaded on Linker Spinner. Link in the description. Please subscribe there too. You would do me also a favor. So, back to this video.
Now, Japan's land is kind of like a gingerbread house. Beautiful on the outside, but potentially dangerous on the inside. First of all, Japan is a stratovolcanic archipelago located right on the most precariously situated section where 4 major tectonic plates converge: the Pacific, the Philippine, the Eurasian, and the North American plates. Of course, this means that not only is Japan subject to earthquakes, but also tsunamis, which by the way is a Japanese word, tsunami, caused from sub-oceanic activities such as the one recently in Fukushima caused by the epicenter in the Japan Trench off the Pacific. This also means that Japan is a volcanic area with numerous volcanoes still active, like Aogashima, a volcano within a volcano, Mount Aso, the largest volcanic caldera. This in return also blesses Japan with countless natural hot springs, which they like to exploit and build bathhouses on, called onsen, typically indicated with this symbol. All this plate activity and volcanoes means that about 70% of Japan is mountainous, with the highest peak, Mount Fuji, overlooking Tokyo.
Yeah, Tokyo. I want to visit Tokyo, as I said also before. And this view looks just insane. I would love to be there with my girlfriend. Really. I love you, Blue Lady.
Which by the way is still technically an active volcano which erupted about 300 years ago. The rift between the Philippine plate and the Eurasian plate creates the Japanese Alps, which bisects the country on Honshu. This isolated geologic war zone in return though kind of blesses Japan with an abundance of unique flora and fauna. Today about 70% of Japan is forested with nice natural water sources like the longest river, the Shinano, and the largest lake, Lake Biwa on Honshu. Endemic animals can be found like Japanese hornets, macaque monkeys, tanukis, giant salamanders, bobtail cat, sero, red fox, red crowned crane, the national dog, the Shiba Inu, the national bird, the green pheasant, and the national fish, koi. Speaking of animals, Japan has quite a few feral animal islands and towns, such as Tashirojima, the cat island.
Moment.
Japan has quite a few feral animal islands and towns, such as Tashirojima.
It looks insane. So many cats.
The cat island, Okunoshima, the rabbit island, the town of Miyajima for deer, Miyagizao for foxes, and of course Jigoku Dani, where you can see those monkeys in hot springs. With limited space and only about 20% highly subsidized arable land, Japan has kind of had to think outside the box. So they said, hey, why not go to the sea? Today, Japan is disputably the most advanced aquaculture society on the planet. Not only do they have the largest merchant marine fleet in the world, but they also harvest everything from shellfish to seaweed in offshore ocean plots and fish farms. They love fish. They even have the largest fish market in the world, Tsukiji. Speaking of which, we all know about Japanese food. I feel like I don't even really have to give you a list of notable dishes like sushi, mochi, or ramen. However, Japan is known for making strange flavors of conventional snacks, drinks, and desserts, such as yogurt Pepsi, spaghetti popsicles, horse and octopus ice cream, pancake juice, wasp crackers, and Kit Kat has tried pretty much anything under the sun. Itadakimasu! Speaking of which,
Rice cookies. Oh, I mean, sorry, but it is really weird for me. Many of these things, or some, but especially this. I don't like the idea of eating insects. Whether or whether not they taste good, I would not do this. It just seems weird for me. I'm sorry, but it's just my opinion, and I don't judge anyone. It's just weird for me.
Japan is the 3rd largest world economy by nominal GDP, mostly due to their various technology and automotive industries that have swept over the world by storm since the middle of the 20th century. The largest automotive companies include Toyota, Mitsubishi, Honda, Nissan, Mazda, Suzuki, and Subaru, as well as tech companies and their subsidiaries like Hitachi, Sony, Epson, Canon, Toshiba, Fujitsu, Panasonic, Nikon, and Nintendo. This does, however, cause a problem. Japan is classified as a high throwaway society in which lots of resources get unnecessarily used and tossed. Like, come on, Japan, I know you have aesthetic standards, but seriously, I don't don't need one apple in vacuum-sealed plastic wrap. Nonetheless, Japan is often seen as one of, if not the world leader in robotics and tech science, receiving more Nobel Prizes in science than any other Asian country. And it's kind of impressive. I mean, with a high population and limited space, Japanese people know how to consolidate and innovate. Speaking of Japanese people,
125 million people. I think it is the 11th most populous country in the world, right behind Mexico. I think Mexico is a bit higher, but I'm not mistaken. And then it's Russia, I think, from its population amount of people living there. So, but anyway, let's continue with the video.
now, Japanese people are like, you never know what they're gonna come up with next. You know it's probably gonna be a little weird, but you're still gonna be a little interested in it. First of all, the country has about 127 million people and is the 10th most populous country in the world.
Okay, 10th. I thought it would be the 11th, and Mexico is after it.
However, Mexico is getting really close to beating them. The country is incredibly homogenous, with over 98% of the populace identifying as ethnically Japanese, while the remainder is mostly made up of Koreans, Chinese, and very small Caucasian minorities of Americans and Europeans, and the indigenous Ryukyu and Ainu peoples. They use the Japanese yen as their currency, they surprisingly use the Type A American-style plug outlet, and they drive on the left side of the road. As mentioned, like 8 seconds ago, Japan has 2 main indigenous ethnic groups.
That's weird with the left side, because, I mean, all other countries drive on the right side. I mean, of course, but the countries which drive on the left side are mostly former British colonies, and Japan was never colonized by anyone, so it is a bit weird for me. But anyway, let's continue.
Each with their own languages. You have the Ainu, which predominantly inhabit Hokkaido and some of the Kuril Islands administered by Russia, known for their rustic scruffy features where men grew beards and women used to tattoo their lips and arms. Today there are less than 30,000 left, but some estimate that there could be up to 200,000 if you include the other Ainu that have assimilated into the rest of Japan and are kind of faintly aware of their own culture. Otherwise, you have the Ryukyu people, or the Okinawans, which are kind of like the Hawaiians of Japan, known for their own distinct art and traditions and beliefs. Now, everybody in the world has had at least a little bit of exposure to some kind of Japanese culture, whether it be samurais, geishas, sumos, kabuki, shamisen music, kimonos, and excessively weird products and advertisements aimed at using non-conformity as a hook to engage viewers. But apart from all that flashy Japan,
there's something recently I heard about Japan, a kind of a drinking campaign where young people were motivated to drink more alcohol, and this seems very weird for me. Why should you do this? But anyway.
Stuff. Let's look at the basics first. Japan, no surprise, speaks Japanese, which is actually not that hard to learn conversationally, but it's a nightmare when it comes to writing. The Japanese language uses 3 alphabets: hiragana, katakana, and kanji.
Here, hiragana. So I can read it, the signs. I know that it's the first sign is he, then then ga, hiraga, and without the 2 little things, it would be ka, with, and the last one would be n. So I can read it, and also katakana, but kanji is more difficult, and I mean, at the end, the most stuff is written in kanji, and just some things are, I mean, many hiragana, you could probably write many of the kanji signs also in hiragana, but kanji is more often used, I think, in katakana just for words that are not Japanese origin, so words from other countries where they are written in katakana, I think.
Technically 4 if you include romaji, but that's kind of like for lazy people. The first 2, hiragana and katakana, are syllabaries made up of 46 corresponding base characters each. That means you have 2 ways to write each syllable, whereas kanji is basically the list of Chinese characters that they borrowed from China. Most students have to learn about 2,000 to 3,000 of these. That means that Chinese people can kind of get by in Japan just by reading the signs, as most of the characters have identical meanings, just different pronunciations. It's kind of hard to explain, but the reason why they use 3 alphabets is because each one kind of plays a role for certain words and context. They don't use spaces in writing, so each alphabet kind of acts as like word dividers, and katakana is used for technical and foreign words. Well, why don't they just fix the problem by using spaces and discard the other 2 alphabets? Shut up! That's why! If you didn't grow up here and actually learn this stuff, you're either obsessed with Japan.
Maybe I'm obsessed with Japan, I want to learn it. And also I heard that Vietnam also used to have a similar writing system at some point in history, and some even think about bringing it back or so. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I heard, and yeah, it's interesting.
or criminally insane. Sorry, I'm boring the crap out of you guys with language stuff. Anyway, let's talk about history. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen that video by Bill Wirtz, whom I am totally not jealous of, considering that he racked up more views and subscribers in 2 videos than I have in all these years of working on this channel. But in the quickest way I can summarize it, Yayoi period, Kofun period, Yamato's unite Japan, Asuka regime, Chinese culture comes in, Heian period, aristocrats take over, Kamakura period, aristocrats lose, Shogun time, province wars, Azuchi Momoyama period, things are stable, Meiji restoration, industrialization, World War I, Japan's economy sucks, coup d'etats and assassination attempts against the emperor, military rule, they try to make an empire and in World War II attack Pearl Harbor, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, afterwards treaties signed, military kind of dismantled, and post-war economic miracle, done! Japan definitely sticks out from every country on earth, and it's partially because of their belief system. Japan is the only country in the world that practices Shintoism, which obviously enough started in Japan. If you don't know anything about Shintoism, basically it's a very ritualistic belief system that reveres a multitude of kami, which translates to something along the lines of gods or spirits or essence. It's hard to explain, but basically a kami can be manifested in almost anything and everything. There are kami for harvest, kami for war, kami for good luck, and so on. Today, about 80% of Japanese people practice Shinto to some extent, whether it be going to temples or shrines and lighting incense and praying. However, most of them will not say that they identify as Shintoists, since there are no formal rituals to deem yourself a practitioner. Otherwise, about 35% might say that they identify as Buddhists, and a small 3% are Christians. Today, there are about 81,000 Shinto shrines and about 85,000 appointed Shinto priests all over the country. Technically, Shintoism is also important because it's claimed that the emperor is a direct descendant of Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun, which means the emperor has the highest authority in Shintoism. Though today it's more seen as like a moral tradition and patriotic practice rather than believing that the emperor actually has divine status. Oh yeah, and Japan has an imperial family with Akihito holding the throne since 1989, and to this day Japan is the only country with an emperor. Some people will say that Shintoism is
I also heard it's the oldest dynasty of a monarchy system in the world, but yeah, I mean, it's also important, I think, this monarchies like in Great Britain or there, it's just symbolically and yeah, the other monarchies or systems like in Saudi Arabia also, but where it is really important, and also they have real power, and it should change there, and it's also important, I think, if it is changing in Japan or Great Britain also, or Denmark or Belgium, I think also, but yeah, those monarchies are not so, I mean, they can change it of course when they want, but it's not so important.
Is partially the reason why Japan also has a vibrant, complex industry of cartoons and anime, many of which inspired from Shinto-driven legends and kami. They often rank as the top video game producing and playing country in the world. Everybody knows Mario, Sonic, and Pikachu. In a sense,
Resident Evil, I think it's also from those from Japan video game makers.
Japanese people have always admittedly kind of been escapists, creating their own worlds, and it might be due to their long history of diplomatic isolation. In another sense, though, honor and diligence culture is of huge importance. Having a degree and respectable title is always flaunted. The problem, though, is that Japan has the largest aging population in the world, in which over 26% of the country is 65 or older. In contrast, only about 12.4% are 1 to 14 years old. Sociologists have many theories as to why this is, but in addition to a high depression rate, there seems to be a lack of sexual interest amongst millennials, especially for men.
That's something I cannot understand. Why should anyone not be interested in sex? I mean, also about pornography also. I mean, it's of course not maybe great also, but I mean, why should anyone not be interested in sexuality? Of course, no one is forced to be interested in this, but I personally can't understand this. So, if you are a Japanese guy who feels this way, please explain it to me. But yeah, of course that's the most important thing in the world, sex and so. But I mean, maybe it's also just because that I had never sex, and that's why I'm so interested. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's not so important, but if you want to write something in the comments, please tell me, and yeah, it's not so important, but it would be interested.
They even have a word for it, Soshoku Danshi, or herbivores.
Moment. Here are men not interested in sexual relations. Oh, right. I mean, I would also, of course, I want to make this clear at this point. I would never have sex with anyone else than my girlfriend. When she would not want to do this ever with me, it's also fine. I would not I would not in the farthest. I mean, I would never think about leaving her because of this. Sex is not that important, I want to say, but if I were to do it at some point with her, with Blue Lady, my beloved girlfriend. Anyway, let's continue this video.
On top of that, Japan has a very strict and conservative approach towards immigration and citizenship. So ultimately, a smaller
I would like to, maybe. I mean, I probably can't live in Japan at some point. Maybe I can. But it would be interesting when they have a strict policy there. It's unlikely, but it would be interesting. Definitely if I have to visit it, and yeah, I could imagine to live there. I think from what I know about the culture, it's interesting, and it would be something I would like, maybe.
generation has to lift the burden of taking care of a population almost 10 times their size. Many Japanese people are overworked. They even have a word for that, karoshi. Some wonder how the future will look like.
Hey son, can you help me cross the street?
Ooh, I would, but you never had a son, so I don't exist. Good luck! Now you can probably understand why the Japanese are so into building robots. There's so much more we could talk about, like how Japan has a strong history in martial arts, folklore, and regional festivals, but this video is already getting long and I have to cut it down. Some notable people of Japanese descent might include people like Emperor Hirohito, Fukuzawa Yukichi, Honda Tadakatsu, Kukai, Maeda Toshie, Tokugawa Ieyasu, Murasaki Shikibu, Saifo Takamori, Akira Kurosawa, Hayao Miyazaki, Soichiro Honda, Miyoshi Umeki, Hibari
Miyazaki, of course I know because of anime.
Sora, Rinko Kikuchi, Osamu Danzai, Kei Nishikori, Ayumi Hamasaki, Takeshi Hitano, Masayoshi Son, Akira Toriyama, Sadako Ogata, Taiho Koki, Masako Katsura, Ichiro Suzuki, Hane Mori, Ken Watanabe, Downtown Duo, Keisuke Honda, and Shinji Kagawa. Now, due to their history, Japan has always kind of been like a lone wolf, but over time they learned how to open up. And let's find out how in the last segment.
Diplomacy. Of course, it's very close to the United States and also kind of to Europe. I think I don't know how it is to the Asian neighbors, except maybe South Korea, and so I'm not sure, but we will see.
So Japan is a pretty big player on the world stage. As a member of the G20, G8, IMF, WHO, UN, EAS, Interpol, and like 400 other acronyms, they know diplomacy pretty well. They get along with Brazil, Peru, and the Philippines pretty well, as each country contains many Japanese communities. And in addition, lots of people from these countries either visit or work in Japan. Peru even had a Japanese president. As mentioned in the France episode, Japan kind of sees France as like the epitome of European exoticism. And after English, French is one of the most highly desired.
So it's kind of, you know, for Japan people, French is the Japan of Europe, kind of the fancy nation or so, if I understood this correctly.
Languages to learn, although good luck considering how every French word kind of ends in a consonant. The Pacific Island nations of Palau, Kiribati, and Marshall Islands still hold close ties, even though Japan kind of occupied them during the first half of the 20th century. Japanese people love visiting and provide business and revenue for these countries. Their biggest frenemies are South Korea and China. These three are like the Asian trifecta, dominating most of the business and affairs in the East. Despite Japan having invaded and occupying these two for decades, my own grandmother was actually raised in Japanese-occupied Korea, and to this day she still speaks fluent Japanese. They've mostly moved on, plus the whole North Korea thing kind of makes South Korea and Japan closer. The youth of today love piggybacking off of each other's cultures. Koreans and Japanese admit it, they can't get enough of Japanese anime and video games, whereas the Japanese are obsessed with K-pop, and you know, they kind of got kanji and Buddhism from China, so there's that. In terms of their best friends, however, interestingly enough though, most of the Japanese people I've talked to have said the USA and Taiwan. Even though they don't officially recognize Taiwan as a sovereign state, on paper, they totally act like they do and stand with them on pretty much any diplomatic measure. Taiwan was actually the longest lasting occupied area
Probably the similar way like the United States also doesn't recognize Taiwan as an independent state, but do everything as they would. So they act similar. They on paper they don't, but on everything else they do recognize in Taiwan as an independent state. But yeah, except in I mean on paper, but everything on every other thing they could do, they act like they would recognize Taiwan as an independent state. So that's I don't know.
Japanese rule during the Empire years, and they have since then still kept close. Even though the pains of World War II will never be forgotten, it's funny because almost immediately after that, the US and Japan started skipping down the street hand in hand. The US kind of felt like a duty to make reparations since they were all.
But why did they then drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Just to have a point to, I mean, just to show the Soviet Union that they are more advanced and that they have this terrible bomb and will also use it in the case of necessity. Or why? I mean, I also heard, it was I think said in the video from oversimplified about the Second World War that they or the video about the fall of World War II. One of those these bombs were dropped on the cities with population and not on military targets. So why did they do this? Remember this. The only time ever anyone has used nuclear bombs were the United States. It was not North Korea, it was not Russia, it was not anyone else in the world, it was the United States of America. The only times in history that these bombs were ever dropped. Threatened? Okay, that's something else, but also really dropped. It was only the United States.
Already communities of Japanese Americans, especially in Hawaii and California. My hometown, Los Angeles, has a little Tokyo. So they invested tons of money in Japan after the war, and in the 50s, Japan started booming in every industry. Culture cues were adopted on both sides. McDonald's opened up in Tokyo, 7-Eleven opened up in the US. They love burgers and Chris Evans, and we have nerds living in their mom's basements rewatching every season of Naruto Shippuden with ill-fitting cosplay outfits. In conclusion, the land of the rising sun has always kind of figured that the best way for them to open up to the world was to create their own worlds with wild imaginations driven by technology, yet still beautifully preserving the ancient, vibrant values of their ancestors. Oh, and by the way, this episode was brought to you by Bob Saget's Bear Sharktopus coffee shoes. Watashi wa kohito kutsu ga hoshi. Let's super harassment sandwich. Stay tuned. Jordan is coming up next.
Interesting. The last segment I have to I don't understand yet in the moment, but interestingly, something I thought they would mention, they did mention, maybe it's because it is mentioned in the, or maybe it gets mentioned in the North Korea episode, because I heard, or maybe it was in the North Korean episode, but I remember that I thought it would happen in this episode. Anyway, when I react to the geography in our North Korea episode, you will also see it. Please like and subscribe to the video, and tell me what you think about certain questions I ask you in the comments. I would really like to see some of the questions and then also answered maybe, and if you have a suggestion for a different video or video game or something else, also write it down in the comments. Please subscribe to my second channel too, and yeah, we'll see us again in the next video. I hope you will have a nice day. I wanted to say something like goodbye also in Japanese, but at the moment I don't know, goodbye in Japanese. I had to ask Google Translate, but then I remembered that I already heard this word. So sayonara.